if I'm dating, I'm just saying, look, I'm not really looking for marriage right now. The reason why that is, I still feel like I haven't really started my life. And it's what my mum always used to say to me as well. She's like, life isn't a dress rehearsal. I just assumed that everyone is way smarter than I am. I'm looking at people in high-powered jobs, hedge funds, people that started a business. These people aren't as smart as one thinks. The only thing that's different is that they'll just do it. It's not about the destination, it's about the journey. It's like so many things in life, you can say that a billion times, but you have to feel it.
Yeah.
And you have to understand it, and good luck.
On today's episode, Fredrik Ferrier, multi-talented musician and TV star. Hello, and welcome to Is This It? I'm your host, Dana Grunberga, and today's guest is one and only Fredrik Ferrier. Hold your breaths, because the list is long. Singer, songwriter, DJ, violinist, pianist, model, TV star, art dealer, and now also his own podcast host.
That is quite the list. And I'm hoping it's not going to be like a sort of jack of all trades, master of none kind of thing. And I do think that one thing that I keeps coming back to me is like, don't spread yourself too thin. Try and have focus on one thing. But I don't know, I think like the way that my life has been and the way that the world is now, I feel like that you can do lots of different things and they can sort of all relate, because as much as that list is quite long, they all kind of relate. They're all creative. And I heard this really interesting thing. It was in, Tim Ferriss. So he has this book, which is called Tools of Titans. And if you haven't seen it or read it, it's very good. You should definitely check it out. And it basically lists, it's kind of, I think what your podcast is going to be like. You're sort of interviewing different people of interest and you're getting little bits of information from them that can hopefully help others. And this particular book, I can't remember who said it, but someone said that it's very difficult to be the absolute best at one particular thing in the entire world. Take the NBA, for example. To be in the top percentile genetically, and then even if you have the genetics, to be in the right place, right country or whatever.
Right time, everything.
And then to have the right aptitudes where you can actually focus, it's so difficult. But if you then take two things that you're very good at, now I remember who said it. It was the guy, who, I think his name was Matt, the guy that created Dilbert, who's a very famous comic in the US. And he said he wasn't the best artist and he wasn't the best comedian. But by combining the two together, he suddenly had a bespoke product, and then that he was able to sort of dominate. So I always think that's really interesting to be like all of those things that I'm doing. There are people that are much better than all of them individually, but together, that's the package that makes me unique. So
I love that. And specifically what you just said, all my life, I've been so averse of putting myself in a box and associating myself to just one thing. I felt it almost as a strain to my freedom. And I think a lot of people put a lot of pressure on themselves, fresh out of high school, out of uni, or when they're changing jobs, because they have this strong perception of need to identify with one profession or with one title. And I think it's in that space of exploration and discovering yourself that you actually allow yourself to become who you were essentially meant to be.
Definitely. I also think, I think now the times have changed. I think before you very much needed to focus on one particular thing. You needed to, whether that was being a lawyer or an engineer or something, the way that the world was before, you did need to have that focus. Whereas now there are so many chances in life to sort of pivot and to try new things. And there's something else I really like, which is because DJing, for example, DJing was like and actually Made in Chelsea. So many things in my life that have happened have been almost like happy accidents that I could never have predicted. So that's why I think that, we're very sort of goal obsessed in this world. We love the idea of, having our goals, sticking to them. What's your 5-year plan? What's your 10-year plan? And although I respect it, I never really could relate to that. And I was like, am I always doing something wrong? Because I don't know what my goals are. Like everyone else has their goals and I don't even really know what I want to do. So there's this book, again, I'm just quoting loads of books, and I actually don't read that many self-help books, but these are two that I really recommend. James Clear, Atomic Habits. And one of the things that I really like that he says is that don't be so goal obsessed, but focus on the system in which to get there. Because if you focus on the system, and for me, that was, looking after myself, practicing music, writing, practicing the piano, singing a lot, writing, obviously doing more, being in the right place for TV and all these other kind of things. The opportunities will just sort of happen if you're like doing the right thing. If you're putting all these little sort of, you have good habits multiplied by time equals, a positive outcome. Similar to if you have bad habits, whether it's like spending a bit too much money, drinking a bit too much, smoking, although the initial sort of smack, you don't get burned initially like you do if you put your hand in the fire, but compounded by time, something bad will happen. And I've had that in my life. I used to run an art gallery, and it was run quite badly, and it wasn't like one big thing that happened, but it was lots of little things over time that then forced me to leave it. But yeah, so just kind of sum that up. I mean, I feel like don't be so obsessed with goals, be obsessed with doing the right thing, and then new opportunities will happen. In my case, DJing, I had no intention to DJ, but then I got, offered a gig, and then now I'm doing that, and I'm doing that way more, flying around the world, doing it way more than singing. And it's something that I didn't even know random. I got asked to do a gig because someone assumed I knew how to do it, probably because I dressed like one. And they were like, yeah, do you know how to DJ? And I was like, yes, I do.
Oh, you just said that even though you didn't.
Yeah, so I learned how to do it in about 3.5 weeks. And I just completely faked the whole thing. Thing is, I do understand music.
So you do believe in fake it till you make it?
100%.
Okay.
100%. Because I also, thing is, I'm a musician, and I do understand things about like, phrasing, structure of music, and understand what works. And everyone thinks they're a good DJ. I mean, we've all been there. You're at an after party, you're in the car, and everyone's like, I'm really good at song selection. and
then 5 minutes later, there's somebody at the back who's like, can I change the music?
Can I put on my song? Can I play my song? And you're like, yeah, after mine. So yeah, I definitely, I'm a big believer in just, not necessarily being so focused on one particular thing, because other things can happen.
I love that you said that you don't know what you wanted to do, or you didn't know what you wanted to do. This is one of the things I wanted to ask you. Did you always know that you wanted to do music, or did you always have this pull, this calling towards it?
So my parents, who I'm so lucky to have the parents that I have, the older I get, the more I realize that it's been my biggest luck in my entire life is the family that I've had. My parents are very supportive, very loving. And my mother, although I didn't see it at the time, was very forceful for me to do violin. She was like, you must play the violin. I don't think any 6-year-old wants to play the violin. And if they do, they're probably a bit of a weirdo. But because my mum was so sort of insistent that, she kept, despite me pushing back and saying, I don't want to do it, and I want to play computer games the whole time. And she was like, no, you've got to do it. And, she used to sort of religiously sort of like pick me up from football practice, take me to orchestra, after giving me various bribes of like, I was living in Norway at the time, so we used to go to IKEA, and
the meatballs with cranberry sauce,
So, and yeah, so she sort of persevered, and it was a very much an uphill struggle up into and then I became a music scholar at my school. I went to the oratory, and then once I became a music scholar, I had to do music. So I was doing, I think I was 11, so I was doing.
When you say had to, what does that mean?
No, because you're on a scholarship. You're getting a reduction in school fees in order for them to sort of extract value from you. So I was doing, and they really did us. I did a junior choir, senior choir, junior orchestra, senior orchestra, string group, barbershop. I was doing piano lessons, singing lessons, violin lessons, all kinds of stuff. I was doing so much music, and I didn't have a choice in the matter, so I had to do it. So the reins were passed over to the school. And I didn't actually really enjoy doing music until I went to a music camp called Haileybury. Haileybury School, and it was called EYSM. And I remember going to this camp, and I finally met some people that I was like, oh, I really like these people, and they're cool. And I'd say I'm very I'm quite influenced.
How old were you?
Probably about 15, 14. And I met these people, and they were all very exciting. And I had a bit of a romance as well. And that in itself, I was like, actually, music's a cool thing to do. And that was like the first switch where I suddenly felt quite proud to be a musician. Yeah. Let's
dive into the deep waters.
Okay.
What's your definition of purpose?
My God, it's a really, really tough one. and I wouldn't be surprised if you have to answer this out, because I don't really feel like, even myself, I feel like I don't know what that is yet, you know? And I see lots of other people that are much older than I am. And in particular, I know this one guy that he's about 60 years old, and he sold a company, made a lot of money, and then sort of slipped into a depression because he was thinking, you know, I've chased this my entire life. You know, I've always thought that this was why I've been sacrificing my happiness, and this is why I've been sacrificing my serenity, because I've been like thinking, well, I can't possibly be happy now. So that sort of dull ache that people feel every day of not being truly content, they account that to being not where they want to be, or not where they think they should be. So he was saying he worked his entire life, you know, sort of pushed aside family, pushed aside friends, sacrifice, exited company, made a ton of money, and then suddenly realized that he had the thing that he'd been chasing his entire life, but felt just as bad, if not worse, because that wasn't the golden elixir that he thought would then suddenly make him very happy. And I remember I read this thing somewhere. It's like, you know, those races where they have greyhounds.
Yes.
You know, and he basically was like, yeah, it's like I've been I think it was a quote from someone, but he used this example of like being a greyhound that's chasing this rabbit, and then they catch the rabbit and they rip it open and they realize it's metal. And it's just like, everything I've thought my entire life was not as I thought it had been. And that's what he thought his purpose was. So it's a really difficult one. So in a long-winded answer, do I know what my purpose is? I have...
Actually, there are two questions.
Tell me.
What is your definition of purpose? And the reason why I asked that, and I'm going to ask that to a lot of people, is because I've found that when we speak to each other, there's very often a discrepancy in what we understand with the same word. So what do you understand actually with that word? What does it even mean to you?
Well, okay, so I think purpose for me, it's difficult, because I feel like we should be, you know, I know sometimes I think that our purpose should be to help others. And then sometimes I also think, well, you know, our purpose is to live our full potential. And I think, but then that sounds also very selfish. And I feel like sometimes the way that you should identify what the purpose is for you is the way that stuff makes you feel. So whether that's doing something that's, you know, that makes you feel hugely fulfilled in that moment and very present and in a flow state, I feel like you should really pay attention to that. And the reason why I say that is because that's different for everyone. You know, for sportsmen, for people that are sort of, you know, some people just like, oh, I just love, you know, horse riding, you know, or, you know, I love being by myself and I love running, and, you know, that feeling is different for everyone. I personally, I love writing music, and I love performing. Like if I've just done a really good performance singing, it's an amazing feeling. I go into a trance when I perform, and I feel like I'm not there, no matter how many people I'm performing in front of. And then afterwards, it feels really good when someone really, you know, comes up to me and says something nice about it, because I feel like I've earned that compliment. And I feel like that was actually interesting about Made in Chelsea. I remember when we first started doing it, and there was a huge amount of like spice and like sort of like buzz around it is the right word. I remember everyone was just like, you know, people coming up to you and asking for photos and stuff. And I was like, we haven't really done anything. We're just very lucky. We're just a group of guys that happened to be, you know, in this show. And then when people were coming up and asking for photos, it just felt very strange. Felt like sort of sneaking into a party that you weren't invited to. You know, it's just like, why are people asking for... Whereas I feel like with music, when someone says, I love the way you sing that, I'm like, yeah, because I've earned that. And you
connected with those people through what you made.
Exactly. So for my purpose, I'd say potentially is making music, writing music, making people... I love making people happy. I like having a good impact on people. I like it when people say that, you know, oh, you've got really positive energy, and I feel like I'm learning stuff from you, because I feel like that's an element of service. And I feel like everyone should have an element. I feel like service is one of the pillars of a happy life.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
With everything you said. And I think it really transpires when you talk, when you walk, whatever you do, that you have this energy and that you have this intention and this desire to make people's lives better. And because I really tend to gravitate towards people like that. So from me to you, you definitely have that about you. And you touched upon check.
Yes.
You touched upon several things that I found really interesting. So talking about purpose, you said that you're a little bit on the fence between should it be for others or should it be about self. And I think that when you find your purpose, it's when those two combine and they marry each other. So when you are in this flow state, when you're in this absolute feeling of, okay, this is it for me, I feel like I was meant to do this, exactly what I'm doing, and at the same time, by you doing that, you inspire those around you so much that you're giving them service, basically.
That's a good point. I like that.
And another one which I really like that you mentioned is about the friend of yours, or the person that you knew, this big CEO. This is something that I think about very often as I hear examples like this. And this is where I think people have set, and of course I might be wrong, and it's actually dependent on the case, but I think sometimes people choose arbitrary goals very early on. And when we do that, and then we don't check in with ourselves year after year as we progress, we get stuck in this chase and we forget why we were chasing in the first place. Mm-hmm. And then when we get there and we get this empty piñata and this empty race rabbit, whatever it was, piñata, it is exactly because we actually didn't construct this goal, which is, by the way, very different for purpose. And already if you sacrifice your life and you build your life around just going after a goal, that's a problem. Because you know how everyone says, like, oh, it's about journey, not the destination. This is a classic example, right? So somebody is so focused on the destination that they neglect everything in their life in between. So their, maybe their relationships, maybe their health, etc. And that's not a great place to be.
I also feel like service is a way you can be truly present. I mean, it's such a cliche, and it's so talked about, and you hear it like, yeah, it's not about the journey. It's not about the destination. It's about the journey. It's like so many things in life. You can say that 1 billion times, but you have to feel
understand it,
and you have to understand it. And good luck. Like that is a daily, hourly, minute by minute practice. You have to be able to, and to think that you can just sort of randomly just like parrot that out and be like, yeah, no, it's about but to believe it is a whole other thing. And I have met very few people that can truly do that. And obviously, yeah, meditation is a big one, doing that and that. But again, meditation is so difficult. I definitely want, I think it's such a preach thing. Everyone talks about meditation, how good it is, but I don't think people talk about how difficult it is for people in our age, because of like, I'm really bad with my phone. And actually, I just got back from Canada. I was there for a week. I was there yesterday or the day before, and there was no reception. And there was only reception in one little cabin, because we were in the
Don't tell me you went and sat in that cabin.
No, because that's where we ate. So we had this cabin that was like lots of different places, and this was like, we're in the middle of nowhere. There was like no one around where we were for 2 hours. Like, Canada's amazing place, huge. And so when we ate, that's where the only place we had reception. And I was calling it like the digital relapse. And it was so funny because you'd go there and you wouldn't have your phone all day, and then you'd go there, and in Harry Potter, when Harry looks at the Dementors and his face starts going, whoa.
Yeah.
That's how you feel. You go there and you're just like, okay, I'll check this shit. And then you're just like,
Yeah.
You go and like, you're on like emails, WhatsApp. And yeah, I mean, I'm doing lots of different things. So it's like, but there's a feeling that's just like, it's so potent, this thing. So like all these like fast moving stuff, my brain likes acting, and my brain likes having 10 apps open, and so then to just put that down and to be like, meditate, it's so difficult. And it's like picking up a violin expecting to be a concert pianist overnight. And that's what I feel like is not spoken about enough, is meditation takes years and years, but just the act of sitting down and trying is everything.
This is so true, and you have no idea. I literally spoke to dozens of my friends, and even in the past 2 weeks, and it's always the same recurring thing that I hear, that it's hard for them to meditate. It's hard for them to just sit and do nothing. It's the hardest thing. But this is something that I say with meditation, as correct, it's a practice that takes years to master. But in essence of it, to whoever's listening, you need to allocate time for that, and you need to show up day after day, day after day. And the one crucial thing about meditation is when we say don't do anything and don't do anything, that is already doing something. So the key to meditation is really just to sit down and leave yourself be. Because often there's this like think nothing. When people try to think nothing, they're like they're already creating tension. Whereas an analogy I like to use is if you're looking at a house, if you imagine there's a head, picture your head, which is a house, and then it has 2 doors. And then from one side, a thought enters, and then you see it, and then you just leave the other door open and you leave it exit. You acknowledge the guest, which is the thought, and then you just let it be. And then another will come and it will go, and then another will come and it will go. And after you practice meditation for enough time, those guests are going to become rarer and rarer and rarer, and then you'll just have peace at some point. But it does take time.
Yeah, for sure. So to anyone listening that's tried meditation for a few weeks and still like, I can't get this, it takes years. But just the act, but then also the relief in that statement should be just the act of you showing up, as you say, is enough. That in itself is just to be able to sit there for 10 minutes and not be on your phone, that you're a step in the right direction. So that's good.
It's almost the sacred time for yourself. It's just you. And actually, I think it was Naval Ravikant that was on Tim Ferriss's show, which I listened to this episode years ago. And he was talking about an hour a day for 2 months meditation, and in the morning. And he said that what happens after those 2 months, all the trash, all the anxiety, all the fear, every single thought that like races through your mind all the time, you've given it enough time to race through. And then there's literally that silence. That is it, because you've thought about everything. What happens in this process in this time that you allocate to the meditation is that you just finally allow yourself to think, but not proactively. It's like the brain processing whatever was there unprocessed that you didn't have time because you were always on the phone, always with your friends, always with your spouse, always working. So where is that time of silence, of peace, where you allow actually your brain to process things? And some of us don't even sleep, like, which is another time when your brain processes all the extra information. Fred,
here we go.
How has Made in Chelsea changed your life?
Well, it's a difficult one to, I mean, in one word, like immeasurably, because I've done it, or I've been involved with that show for over a third of my life, which is crazy. Like, I did that show when I was 21, I'm 33 now. So that is just mad. And I the answer is I have no idea, because it's all I've ever really known in my 20s. Like that, I've always been a part of that show, or people have known me from that show. The way I look at it is it's done me loads of favors. And people always ask me, "Yeah, you happy you did it?" And I'm like, of course I'm happy I've done it. Like it's opened up lots of doors. It's been fun. There's been so many other reality shows that have just like flopped after that one, and Made in Chelsea's still going on. Like it's been going on for like 11, 12 years, still gets good numbers. And so, I'm happy to be a part of that. They've been good to me, and it's been really fun. But the other thing is that why would one look at it in any other way? Like, why would I be like, oh, well, if I didn't do that, maybe I'd be like a successful singer right now, or maybe I'd be like this or that. Like, I just see it as, I very much embrace and I do truly embrace this concept of like, everything was exactly as it should have been. And I feel like if you can really embrace that, it's one of the most peaceful ways to live. I think not living in the wreckage of your past is like, and thinking, well, maybe I should have done that. Maybe I should. I don't. The thing that's actually more difficult, I think sometimes people live in the wreckage of their future. I think, you know, in other words, they're like thinking, well, you know, how maybe I should do this, and where I feel like, yeah, at the moment, for whatever reason, I'm in quite like a sort of everything is exactly as it should have been. And it's a very nice place to be, because you just think, yeah, you know, I'm here, I'm good, everything. Like if I've missed this, if I didn't used to be like that. And when I was an art dealer, that was actually one thing I always used to think about, because the art world, you're always around the corner from a huge, like your next biggest sale. And you have like, you know, you're like really. So
you're always in the future tense.
You're always thinking, well, if I do that, maybe this will happen. And maybe I'll go out and maybe I'll, you know, meet this amazing client, or maybe I'll do this. And actually, and that's an exhausting way to live, because you're just like unsettled. So, because it did actually happen, you know, I was out and about and you meet someone and it changes your course of, whereas now I just think, oh, well, whatever, if I decide not to go out, it's for the best. And if I do, then it's good. And obviously I sort of apply that to different things. But yeah, if that's something that you can embrace as a sort of mantra, it's one of the most peaceful things you can do.
I love that. And I live by the same rule now. But my question to you is, how did you get there?
Changing my environment, you know, realizing when you're in a toxic environment, and realizing if you're in a sort of, I mean, the thing is that it's very easy to say I was in a toxic environment and therefore I wasn't in the best place. But for me, I don't say that. I also think I was part of the problem. And it's people very easily say, well, they blame everything on certain people that were around them. And I think it's really important for people to suddenly think, hang on a second, what's the common denominator in all of those friends that were bad for you? Tell me. Yeah, it's you. So I think, but it's so people always just very quick to blame other people for their shortcomings. But I feel that we, as you know, we also have our parts to play. So for lots of those sort of toxic friendships, relationships, you're also a part of that. But so you're also bad for that person as well. So I think, but ultimately, yeah, I think finding people that are very calm, that are very sort of spiritual, you know, healthy, that sort of make you the best version of yourself, and reinforce, because it is terrifyingly accurate about the people that you hang out with. Like you are the sort of mean, or the sort of the product of the 5 people that you hang out with the most. Like that is scarily true. So, and the thing is that although your friends might not necessarily want ill for you, they might not be the people that are going to make you the best version of yourself, and vice versa. So, and that's not, as I said, it's not like a malevolent thing. They're not being like horrible, like, oh, I'm going to keep Dana, like, you know, a little bit, like they might just be on different things.
Different wavelengths.
100%.
Yeah, mindsets.
So, yeah.
Who are the people that are most influential in your life right now?
I mean, I have lots of people, but they're kind of, you know, no one will really know them, but I've got like 5, you know, my dad, okay. I mean, no one knows my dad either, but as in, he's very influential and I'm very, very close with him. But there's something interesting I'll talk about later, which I saw in your questions about my dad, so bring that up in a second. And then, yeah, probably some of my closest friends, really, that keep me, that challenge me, that sort of make sure that I'm not, because you also want to be quite wary of people that just make you feel great about yourself the whole time. Just say, yes. As nice as it is, you want also people that challenge you. But yeah, no, I'm very lucky to have a very strong, secure network of people around me, of people that I trust, of people that I could tell anything, no matter how horrible it was or how embarrassing. I could literally, and they do know already all these things about me.
This is a really, really important point. In fact, what do you think is the most important thing for somebody to be a true friend? I think it's the area of non-judgment is one of the foundations to have a long, good friendship.
Definitely. That, I think it's a mixture. I think I used to think, you know, I used to say loyalty, 100% loyalty, but loyalty can also be blind as well. People can also, like, I knew this one guy once, and he was very, in inverted commas, loyal, but his loyalty would manifest in itself about like beating other people up, you know. Like he was like, basically this is a long time ago. You're going back like 10 years. He was this like big guy at school, but you know, whenever we used to go out, he'd be like, if anyone looks at you, I'll go and sort them out. But he was just, in hindsight, and everyone was like, oh, he's a good, loyal guy. In hindsight, he was just a very angry person. that just
You don't want loyalty from the wrong people.
no, exactly, and he was just doing stupid stuff. He was acting like an idiot. But I do think that the one thing I'll say actually is what people that can get uncomfortable for you. I think that's a really powerful. And what I mean by that is, I know that, we both have friends that are sort of very wealthy, for example. And if you were like, oh, okay, I really need to borrow like a few, £1,000 or something, or like whatever it is. And they're, but yeah, okay, yeah, of course, there you go. That for them is nothing. But if you were to get someone that was like really struggling themselves and they were to also give you that money, that is, the weighting of that is so different. You see what I mean?
100%.
So that's what I think is someone that's willing to go out of that. So for example, the same person that would easily write you a check for £10,000. If you said, oh, I really like, I'm stuck in, where were you? Spain recently. And I really need you to just, it's a Sunday morning. Can you just go to the passport office at 7 when it opens and sign this thing? Nah, I'll lend you 10K because that's nothing. But it's the person that gets uncomfortable for you. I feel that is such a rare thing, and that is different for everyone. But someone that can put their own sort of nose out and go out of their way to help you, that is really rare, and that's what we should all sort of look for in friends.
The fact that we're talking about this now got me thinking, why do we as humans actually put such emphasis on this? Why do we need this proof?
On what?
That these people will do these things for us.
Well, I guess it comes down to, I guess everyone, whether they like it or not, wants security from some things. And with security is like a very loose.
So somebody's sacrifice would mean
that you're more,
that they're more
able to look after you in a certain way, and vice versa. So it means like if something was to go wrong, that person is there for you. So it's like we're pack creature, we're tribal creatures, right? So you want to ultimately know that that these people are going to be around you no matter what. And I feel like maybe that's it, because it also traces down. That would be my first guess. I'm not a psychologist or anything, but I just know none of us, I don't think, want to be alone for long periods of time, right? So I think we just want to know that person is going to be there for us in some shape or form.
I was listening to Stephen Bartlett's newest episode with Simon Sinek, and he was just talking about of the importance of acknowledging, actually, of us being tribal animals, as you say, social creatures, which I thought was fascinating. And he completely debunked Maslow's pyramid, saying that was based on an individualistic perception of a human being, whereas it didn't take into account that we are social creatures. So
interesting.
I'm just plugging all these podcasts that I love.
Hey, that's what it's all about.
But talking about relationships, since we're there, what do you think are the qualities of a woman that would make her be seen as a long-term partner?
Well, that's an interesting one, because for me at this stage, like, I still can't imagine settling down, and I don't know, and I think that's just being 100% honest. And actually, if I'm dating, I'm just saying, look, I'm not really looking for marriage right now. The reason why that is because I still feel like, and I know this is probably a character defect, if I'm being honest, is it's like I still feel like I haven't really started my life. And it's what my mum always used to say to me as well. She's like, life isn't a dress rehearsal, which I would think is a very powerful thing. In other words, like, this is life. Like, it's not like we kind of think, oh, like we always think life is over there. But I don't know, there's something about like the fact how much my life has changed hugely in the last 6 months. Like, the things that I'm doing, there's something even else that's not even on that list, which I've been doing, which is, I'm not even going to go into because it's pointless. But like, these things did not exist 6 months ago. So I'm kind of like, I'm still sort of in a massive sort of way of like, self-exploration. And I don't really know if London is going to be my home, to be honest, anymore. So I'm kind of just thinking, do I want to settle down and start a family? No. And that's being very honest. And I think it's much better to be honest about that than to be like, yeah, I think that's what I want. And then just to, then be disingenuous to someone that wants that. Because I feel like if you want that, amazing, great. Like, yeah, go for it. And there'll be loads of people that do. But yeah, I think it's very important to be honest about your intentions. maybe this will change. Maybe in 2 months, maybe, who knows, maybe tomorrow, everything will change. But for now, that's what I'm thinking. And but to answer your question loosely, I think that it's very important. You have to meet someone that basically makes you a better person than if you're single.
I agree.
Because what is the point other than that? You know, you have to meet someone that makes your life way better than being single, because it's a commitment. Any relationship requires huge amounts of maintenance and work for it to be good. Like anything in life, everything in life requires maintenance and work. So to meet someone that, you know, it's going to be like 2 + 2 = 5 kind of thing. That's what you want, or even like 10, 2 + 2 = 10. That's
Doesn't
the sort of
that
thing.
put a lot of pressure on the other person though?
Not if it's a sort of mutual, not if it's a mutual thing. You want to make each other. It's not a one-way thing. You don't want that person to make your life better and that's it. That's a very like outdated kind of thing. But as in, you want to help each other. You want to bring out the best in each other. You want to inspire each other. And yeah, I think that is, for me anyway, I think that's what it should be. What about you?
100% agree. And I say that myself, that if my life is not becoming better because since I'm with you, then what's the point? Literally, I say exactly the same thing.
Actually, I don't know anything about your dating. I've been for a long time. I've never known about any like partners or anything like that. It's something you keep quite quiet.
Yeah. And that's because I think I'm a romantic person, and I just think that part of life is so intimate and so not it's so special. I just don't feel like publicizing or sharing it. And obviously, you know, I'm changing as well with time, but I used to think, okay, well, unless it's my husband, why would I even be posting some stuff there? Because otherwise it's just going to be another person down the line. So why am I totally posting this person and that person? Like, what's the point? Who am I doing this for?
Everyone else.
Yeah.
And to say that you're not is lying, because if you weren't, then you wouldn't post it.
Yeah,
I always think that when people are posting, it's like, you're not doing this for each other. You're doing this because you want a reaction, because that's what social media is. You know, you're doing things in order for a reaction of sorts. So I totally agree with that. And again, that's why on Made in Chelsea, I don't date. And everyone's always asking me, like, why don't you date? I just couldn't think.
Like your colleagues. Or generally,
everyone, people ask me on Instagram why, but I just don't really feel like that's a part of my life I want to put out there. Something that's like,
I respect that. It's privacy.
It is. And I'm lucky on Made in Chelsea because I can add value in other ways. Like, you know, I can be humor, like one-liners and all this other stuff. And I can be kind of, and I'm a sort of like I'm a peacemaker I don't like rising. I'm very diplomatic, and that's maybe because I've got 2 older sisters, and I don't know, I just like, I can negotiate between other people quite easily. It's always come naturally to me. If I can see a problem and I can resolve it. And for Made in Chelsea, that's like, you know, the people love seeing drama. You know, people love seeing, and that's fair enough. You know, I'm guilty of that as well. I would not watch a TV show if it was just like everyone being like, hey, this is great. Good to see you again. Yeah. Listen, happy we talked through this. Like, you know, people want that because that's what's interesting. So yeah, as a result, I don't really film that much on those kind of things. But that's true to who I am. I'm not a sort of aggressive guy, and I'm not like, it was really funny recently. When I was in America, I was out in this bar, and I'd actually just DJ'd, and we went to this place afterwards, and there was this girl I was with, and anyway, there was this other guy that, you know, was, I think, trying to get with her. And anyway, someone comes up to this girl in a bar in the middle of nowhere. It was in LA, and it's being incredibly like over the top inappropriate. Like, he was just drunk, you know, and he was just like out of it, and he was trying to and the other guy that was there goes up to this guy and was like, and was like so threatening, and was like basically incredibly aggressive, you know, towards her, and was like bang, like to this guy. And then this other guy, then his person's friend, comes for like reinforcements because he sees his friends like about to sort of, and he just sees me, and he's literally about to like start on me, and I just diffuse him 100%, like, you know, friendly, you know, hand on heart, like, is everything okay? No, I didn't mean to do that. And he was just like,
Okay.
Damn, I like you. Yeah. Like, and then I went up to the other guy and I was like, oh, I think there's been a big communication. Like, I can clearly see, look, you seem like a really nice guy. And I think, so we've all had and he was just like, And then it's funny because this guy then turns to the girl and he says, yeah, I'm a fucking fighter. He's like, I'm a fighter. That's what I do. And I turned around and I was like, yeah, I'm a peacemaker. And she found it so funny because I've always been like that, because I think very rarely does fighting ever sort of, I'm really glad that I smacked that guy. It's a really good thing. Like, it's always better to be diplomatic and to sort of,
I mean, it shows more skill, essentially, that you don't need to resort to the last resort, which is physical power. You can use your emotional intelligence and your intelligence to resolve an issue. I mean,
yeah. So I heard someone once say that it's like the power is in your calm, and I like that as well. If you can be assertive, calm, and powerful, that's so much more like, yeah, because you can be ballistic,
like Tommy
scary.
Shelby, right? I mean, he also can be violent, but he has this calmness, this stillness.
Exactly. And I guess with him it's kind of different because people know ultimately like he would
game over.
He's a gangster, exactly like that. And yeah, but that is also very scary. But then he's like, for Arthur, he's also scary as well, right? The Arthur, but he's very openly violent. But yeah, I wouldn't say I'm not really like the Peaky Blinders.
You're very diplomatic. I like that. We touched upon dating a little bit. If you had to sum up London dating life in one sentence, what would it be?
Fast, non-committal, fast. No, I say fast because there's so much, like, I don't know. And I'm actually wondering now, like, these things like dating apps and stuff, is that actually a sort of a curse in disguise? The fact that, I mean, I don't know, because I've met lots of people that have like got married from Tinder and are very happy. But it's crazy just how like you can go on a dating app and you just have, all these matches and you just think, right, that's, if it's not that person, and that's a whole person that you're looking, that you just swiped, that's an entire person, like, that's someone, and you're just like, yeah, no, it's, I think almost it's like, is just the amount of choice, is it actually detrimental? There was actually a study I heard ages ago about how choice equals unhappiness. Oh, too much choice. Like, if you have way too many things to choose from, you'll often walk away thinking, I probably picked the wrong one, than if there was less. And then you think, yeah, you almost own that one thing. Think, yeah, that was definitely the right thing to pick. I'm not talking about dating here. That would be the wrong term to use. But as in, like, if there's less, you just see where I'm going with that.
100%, 100,000%. I always think this, like, if there's a choice between two things, easy, this or that. Well, sometimes not even then it's easy. But when you have 50 channels to choose from, that's when you spend 20, 30 minutes just like scrolling next. So it becomes a task of choosing instead of actually enjoying some sort of program. And dating apps, I've thought about this a lot. And I think it's how you go into it. As everything, it can be good or bad. So if you go into this intentionally, okay, I want to, first of all, do you even know what you want? Number one, because people go onto these things for very different reasons. So somebody might go onto their, they will know this, or it's subconscious, for attention. Just, oh yeah, I got like 10 other matches today. Super hot. Okay. Somebody might just do it for that. And, okay, as long as you know that, it's not that great for the other person, maybe because they had different intentions, but, that's pretty much life, right? So at some point you will match with somebody that has an intention of actually going out and dating. So somebody might be there for like one night stands. And even that's okay as long as you're honest, which is what you said earlier,
Yeah.
Somebody might be there for finding long-term relationships, and that's amazing. And you definitely have more chance of finding somebody on a dating app than not on a dating, like nowhere, right?
Yeah.
Because this day and age, everyone's busy, everyone's working, family, siblings, whatever. Hopefully you're not going in a dating app when you have a family.
Yeah.
But you get the point. And
there's something for everyone on these days. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure there are dating apps like that. There actually is. Somebody told me this recently, that there's a dating app for married couples. Like, as in, like,
told me that. That was
I told you that wasn't me.
I'm kidding.
No.
Someone said Yeah.
But yeah, I think be intentional and just
Be honest about you. Be
yeah,
honest
be
about
honest.
what you
Be honest
want.
with yourself while you're there,
Because
and
there'll be
and with
people that
others.
want the exact same thing as you.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. It's better then, but you owe it to people that don't want the same thing to just not. Like, that's what I would say.
Exactly. And that goes back also to what you said earlier with people and like wasting time. That's a big topic, especially with women. You know, everyone always goes about, you know, like at a certain age, you need to do this, you need to do that, which is not right. You should just follow your timeline. But certainly don't waste people's time. If you're not going in the same even direction, you don't need to walk the same path because you're different people. And ultimately, you know, you're coming together to make each other better, but you need to go into the same trajectory. So if for somebody, you know, they never want to get married, or they don't get married in the next like 10 years, 5 years, and then they meet somebody who they think is so amazing and oh my God, there's this such connection, but they're like, I want to get married this year because I don't know, whatever the story is. Don't be selfish.
Definitely.
Either you know, really fall in love with that person, or you care about that person enough that you can consider whether you would maybe change your perspective and then go into their trajectory, or just be honest and let them choose.
Yeah.
And that's
also, I mean, it's I have to be sort of, because obviously I'm not a woman. But, you know, so I'm speaking from a different point of view because I realize it's very different. But I always think that, you know, I know people, sort of women that are very, shall we say, pressured and feel very sad about, you know, biological clock. Like, oh, fucking hell. But, and although I do definitely respect that, but I feel that it's when you're in that headspace of freaking out and you're in that headspace of scarcity, and you're in the headspace of, I need to find this now, I just feel like that's not a good energy to put out ever.
100%.
And I feel like, I don't know, maybe as a woman, I you know, again, I really just want to, like, full disclaimer, I hope I don't say the wrong thing here, but just from my point of view, it's like, if you can just be happy with being yourself, being by yourself, that it's just that in itself, having, like, owning that, sort of being comfortable with yourself and being happy with where you are, good things will happen. You just attract better things, regardless. If that's a partner, if that's a baby or whatever, like, just, it's never good to be in that headspace of freaking out and I'm not where I should be. And that can come in all different guises, but I definitely see it with certain women, because then what you don't want to happen is to be freaking out about, I don't have, you know, I wish I had a child right now, and then you go with the wrong guy. And that could be awful.
100%. I know I keep saying 100%, but I just agree with so much that you're saying. It's definitely true when you're, as you said, that scarcity mindset is when you're thinking, okay, I must because.
Yeah.
And usually that because is some sort of limiting belief or some sort of external programming that's been instilled with you, because there's ultimately no bomb and nobody like there with a holding you at gunpoint, saying that by age 30 you must have everything figured out. Luckily. I'm
glad that's not the case, because I'd be screwed otherwise.
Tell me about 3 important life lessons that you've picked up over the years.
Okay, so I'm going to try and remember them, and I'm trying to say these as concisely as possible. Firstly, people have this idea that everyone knows what they're doing, and they really don't. And remember earlier on, I mentioned my father, and I have an interesting point about him. The one thing I'd say about my dad is that he's so intelligent. And I remember growing up with him, and, like, you know, him watching, for example, University Challenge, and just, he's a real sort of polymath. He knows so many things and knows so, like, about every single different field, whether it's in, like, he'd watch these shows where people would get quizzed on, like, politics and geography and physics and maths, and he'd be like, how do these people not know? And I'd be like, fucking hell, like, oh,
no pressure.
I don't know. Anyway, so I think because he was such a major figure in my life, and still is, I just assumed that everyone is way smarter than I am. And one thing that's interesting is now, I've just, more than ever, I'm looking at people in high-powered jobs, whether that's in, like, hedge funds, whether that's people that started a business and, but you know, like biology, all these other things. And I'm like, actually, these people aren't as smart as one thinks. The only thing that's different is that they'll just do it. Like that is often the thing that separates people, is your ability to just back yourself and be like, yeah, I'm going to do this. It's that sort of bullish confidence. So to sort of, to sum that point up, you know, you look at all these people in, you know, even politics, and you just think, wow, people aren't as smart as you. You don't put people on pedestals. If that would be the sort of thing, don't put people on pedestals. There's nothing really that separates all of us apart from, most of the time, a screen. This thing is really bad for making you feel like people are above you because of the way that, you know, people portray themselves. But ultimately, everyone is just as, like, lots of people are very, you know, have lots of fear. Lots of people don't know what they're doing. And I think the moment you realize that, and there's some, actually, it was another Tim Ferriss thing. He said that people, everything in this world is built by people that are just the exact same as you. It's microphone, lights, this, that. It's all the same. And I think that's a really nice thing to think. And you think, it just gives you the ability to just go and back yourself. Point 1. Point 2, don't wait. I'm so happy that you're doing this podcast. And when you said it to me, I'm thinking of doing this, I was like, absolutely do it. Because fear comes in so many different guises, and it holds us back from doing everything. And fear, when I say it comes in different guises, it'll come in the sense of like, okay, you know, you're too good for this. Dana, you don't, you like, you know, it's a little podcast. No, like, you know, you don't know. Like, look at everyone else. They're doing, like, they're signed with Acast. They're signed with this. They have all these people. They've got 20,000 listeners. They have 30. You just don't do this. We don't want to look bad. We want to protect. Like, that is fear. And it's so important to recognize when fear is about to hold you back from doing amazing things, because it does. For me, it held me back in so many different things in my life, thinking I was too, like, good for stuff. Oh, I'm not going to do these other shows because I'm kind of this. And like, so yeah, don't let fear hold you back. Learn to recognize it, because it comes in so many different forms. Whatever you're thinking of doing, to anyone that's listening to this, whether, and that's, you know, in your case, this is podcast, but if it's like you want to become sort of an artist, a sportsman, you want to try your hand at, you know, setting up a company, selling something online, and you look at all these other people doing it, you're like, well, they know what they're doing and it's probably too late. Ignore that and just do it. That's my second point.
How do you overcome fear?
Action. One word, action.
Agreed.
Because sitting and thinking about doing something, you know, is this just, but like, whether for, in my case, like performing on stage, it's the best thing is to just go and do it. And you know how you said earlier about that, the meditation thing, and how your brain is, you know, you just sit with these feelings and eventually you have to, like, they have to endure and then they just go away. I feel like with things like performing, no matter who you are, you will have fear on when you first do stuff, but then it's just about pushing through it and then you feel great. So whatever that is just by repetition, doing things over and over again, fear will go away.
Action is the ultimate antidote.
Point 3. Okay. So fear, don't hold back. No, so I think that's it. So it's okay. So learn to recognize what fear is in all its different guises, and that, because it comes in all these, it's so sneaky.
How do you recognize? What's your radar? It speaking to, like, brutal honesty, speaking to people. And like, because as I said, the reason why it's sneaky is, I said, it poses as your friend. It's like, nah, we don't want to do this. Like, just stay, you know, like, just don't do that. Don't go and take that risk, you know? And I've done that with something, like, I was thinking even with the podcast, I was like, do we really need another one? There's lots of other people from Made in Chelsea that have done them. Am I really going to add value? No, we don't want to do this. Let's just stick to what you know and stuff. Nothing good comes in life by just being comfortable. You always have to do new things. So that was point 1. Point 2, action. Like, just do, don't think, just continue to do. And the third thing would be that everyone else isn't as smart as you think, and you're the same. So those 3 points. I love that. Very, very precious lessons. Thank you for sharing them. I want to talk about your podcast a little bit.
Tell me.
First of all, hilarious. And thank you so much for making it.
Thank you.
And I wanted to ask you, you are well known for being a funny person.
Yes.
So is that an acquired skill, or are you born funny?
Was interesting because actually I've noticed, like, for example, this podcast, I've really enjoyed this episode, but this isn't a funny sort of, I have And I've noticed it's very different to my one. Like the one that I'm doing is very much like bang, bang, bang. Okay, joke, 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 joke. And as much as I do enjoy that, I also enjoy these kind of ones as well, and actually talking and, ultimately getting a bit of both is the sweet spot. So with that, my dad is so funny. He's like, and like in our life, we've always been, doing like, stupid accents and, these kind of things. So I've always been around humor, but you can definitely refine it, and you learn what's, you learn how to sort of gauge crowds and what people, it's all about audience as well. I feel like knowing your audience, there are certain jokes that are a bit more risky that you just don't tell to some people, because that's like prospecting, right? So that's also a big thing with humor, I think. I definitely say that it also humor, like wit, for example, is how quick your mind is. And that's something I think that can be practiced, making your brain more agile. I don't know. I wouldn't refer to myself as like, I'm a funny guy. Hi, Fred, I'm funny.
Well, I mean, even on Instagram, right? You are the king of puns.
Yes.
I mean, I'll spend like 20 minutes trying to figure out what sort of description on the photo I will put there, and then I give up and I put an emoji, and there you are, just rolling out the. And
the funny thing with that is that's actually a funny example, because and I can say it's like Sophie, my co-host and dear friend, she asks me for captions the whole time. Olivia Bentley, the same thing. Julie's like, all these people.
That could be a part-time job.
That's what I was thinking. And eventually I was just like, no, I'm not. And I just stopped doing it for most people. I do it for Sophie now. But I get asked to do that. And it's just the way my brain, that's the way my brain thinks. If I see something, I will instantly think of, okay, that word. It's like, imagine Countdown. Those people, like, I look at Countdown and think, how the hell did they do that? But imagine when they started, they're very, like, where they are now is just league stratospheres above. And I feel like that, like, when I see a word, I'll instantly think about all the words that sound like it, rhyme like it, or, I can't actually stop. Which goes
back to your musical background in a way.
I guess, yeah. It goes back, I don't know. I think accents are definitely musical, because the accents are basically just like, it's intonation. But yeah, so I for puns, for example, I actually can't switch that part of my brain off. Like, I'm always looking at things and thinking, oh, that sounds like. So yeah.
What about your So I always think, for somebody like you, you're traveling a lot, you have loads of different things that you're doing. How do you manage your productivity? How do you get things done when you're on the road and when you're always traveling?
Well, what's been a lot more challenging recently with travel is the late nights. Going to bed at sort of 4 a.m, or if you're jet lagged and stuff, trying to be sort of productive like that. But I think everyone is different. For example, I'm not like working in a sort of hedge fund or an oil company where you have to go. You have a 12-hour flight and then you have 1 hour sleep and then you go to a meeting and you have to start crunching numbers. Like, hats off to those people. For me, it's like I basically just had to perform a service which is high energy, which again is difficult. Like to put on a sort of full energy show, because that's why people like you and book you for musical performances. It's not just being able to like press a button. You need to like bring it. That takes some skill, but I guess.
How do you do that? How do you
turn it on?
Yeah, the energy. How do you replenish it? How do you prime yourself to be in that state?
Well, I guess the whole thing with turning it on, and that's practice, and I think, yeah, like as a performer, as a singer, you have to just be like, okay, and then game face, and then you turn it on, and I can do that, and I've just been doing that I've been doing that since I was, I've been playing the violin since I was 6 years old. My parents used to get me to perform at like dinner parties and stuff. Oh, yeah. I was like, Fred, go get your violin. So I think just being able to like turn it on is something I'm quite good at. And that's, practice. And also just borrowing energy from the future. So
interesting.
In other words, that you're going to be like, it's like, I guess if you look at a bank, it's like, borrowing money that you then have to pay back. So in other words, thinking, okay, I'm just going to get through this. I'm going to like put on all this fake energy, but you have to pay it back. So you then allowing yourself time afterwards to sleep, rest. In my case, I like being by myself to rest. I genuinely, as much as I'd say like I love being in crowds and stuff, I need to have that space where I'm just alone. And the gym for me is a big one, like being by myself in the gym with my music, not with other people, not talking. Singing as well, you have to not, for me, like talking even tires out your voice. If you have a big gig, you don't go out all day and like take loads of meetings and stuff because your voice will suffer. So it's about sort of knowing your limits and making sure that you can have ample time before or after to sort of repay that sort of energy deficit.
I love that. I never thought about it that way, about borrowing the energy from the future. I love that. What about cultivating creativity? How do you do that?
So I would say that comes from everyone is different. Some people get inspired by just being by themselves. Like I know some musicians that only like to be in the room with their equipment, their instruments in the cabins in the middle of the woods, and that's how they write music. That is not how I write music at all. I like to write music by being with other people that we can bounce off, and being inspired by stuff that's just happened. And so everyone is different there. And yeah, as I said, for me personally, if that's the question, I like to surround myself with people that are very also equally creative, and then we just make something completely new. I'm not the type of person that can just go off and write an entire song by myself by a piano. I'm far too like, my brain moves too quickly. I need like other people to sort of try melody ideas, this, that, what about this word, no, like moves like that. So yeah, you need to find what that is for you.
We spoke about habits and you mentioned atomic habits before. So you're a very sporty person. Do you work out every day, or how often is that? And what other habits aside working out are crucial to you to be able to function at high levels each day?
So yeah, I don't work out every day, simply because it would be counterintuitive, because your body needs to rest and break. In terms of sporty, I'd love to. The thing is, I've got loads of injuries from sports. So I've got like fractured wrist, my shoulder. I've got hypermobility, so I've had a dislocated shoulder, had loads of operations, and even recently when I was in Canada, all these like day-to-day sort of activities that we were doing, we went kayaking and stuff, and then we had to like carry these. I've got to be careful doing all that other stuff. The gym for me is actually fine, but in terms of like farmers, like these guys that are like not in great aesthetic shape, but they're strong as hell. I have so much respect for guys like that. So yeah, I love going to the gym. For me, it's a huge part of keeping my head straight, and it's a nice way to get tired. It's also a nice way to be by yourself. It's been a part of my life since I was, I think, 18, and I've been training for such a long time. It's like it's a huge part of my life. And for me, an hour in the gym, like whenever I'll go anywhere in the world, it's also a good cure for jet lag. As soon as you get some, just to train, although you might be tired, is a great way to sort of get back in the rhythm. My dad will always say to me, like, if I'm on holiday, like, why are you going to the gym here on holiday? I'm like, this is literally a holiday.
This is life.
This is life for me. This is like, there's nothing really I enjoy more than just going to the gym, having like far too much coffee and then going to the gym, training. I absolutely love it.
Can you tell me about pivotal moments in your life that made you who you are?
Still having them off the top of my head, probably my exit from the art world. Up to that point, I think I was extremely lucky. Everything I did worked, and I would basically say it's like going to a roulette table and gambling. And you play something, and you win. You're like, okay, great. You do it again, and you win again, and you keep winning. Before you know it, you think
I'm invincible.
Yeah, I had that moment, and then I think in the art world, I had a fall, which I won't go into too much, but it made me sort of reevaluate things, and it kind of it gave me a lot of humility, and made me realize that actually that's not the way the world works. And I was very lucky. So that was a very pivotal moment, sort of having that sort of like leveling, I'd say. But also one thing that's important, I think, is if, one can, in life, you can have these moments where you're humbled or leveled, or you lose something, you lose a partner, you lose a business. It's also, despite having that, you have to learn the lesson from it, but it's also very important not to lose the spark not
to let it get to you.
Exactly. And what I mean by spark is you can you can be in a situation where you can, the thing that often makes you like entrepreneurs and that sort of risk, like appetite for risk, as we get older, we lose that. We lose our confidence. We lose our, if you look at a child, like, I don't know, I'm quite bad with ages, but like a super young child that will just walk in here and start singing and dancing, and then just like dancing around and singing a song into like a microphone. That doesn't as you get older, that happens less and less, because people I just couldn't imagine standing up in front of all those people. So yeah, you lose your confidence. And as you get older and you get more and more knocks, you become cautious. And although it's great to be cautious and it's good to sort of learn to manage risk, there's also a thing that if you're too risk averse, you don't do anything, because you become too fearful of stuff. And so that was something I noticed, that when I lost my way and the art kind of thing kind of fell apart, initially it made me incredibly bearish about stuff and too cautious. And that's not good to be, because you want to always put yourself out there. And yeah, that's my other sort of second part to that point is, yeah, don't lose the spark.
If you had to share one of the toughest moments in your life, would that be related, or would that be
I'd say that
else?
was probably the same thing. Yeah. Okay.
What about something you'd consider one of your greatest wins?
Yeah.
Or the highs?
I don't know.
So I have so many.
No, I don't even, I don't know. But yeah, I'm lucky to say that there's been loads, there's just loads of moments in life where I just think, yeah, this is great. And they're not often what you think they are. They're just, moments where you feel content. They're just moments, I think. And that is something amazing, because yeah, I feel like when you start putting metrics on stuff, that whether it's the certain amount of streams, the money or whatever, it's known that these things themselves aren't. You can ask anyone that's got a number one or something. It feels euphoric, but eventually it's a transient moment. Whereas I think suddenly when you feel those moments of like, yeah, I'm in the right place and this is great, like that's a real win. And that sounds so cheesy to say, but it's
so it's true. The small things, essentially, in a way.
Yeah, and I'm kind of hesitant about saying small things, because again, you just hear that so much. But I guess it's just a moment where you feel like you're on the right track is a nice thing. And actually this year has been a year where I can look back on this year and generally think it's been an amazing year for me. It's been the best year probably of my life.
What made it great?
I think this year was the year where I sort of like loosened this grip of what I thought success should be. Because it can be so focused, like that's what I wanted to be. And I feel like the moment I sort of relaxed a little bit and just, there were other things that were trying to sort of get in my path that were actually good for me, that I was like, no, just got to focus on that. No. Whereas actually the moment, I think this year was the moment where I was just like, I just went with it a bit more, and I just allowed life to happen. I just took more chances and went in different locations and directions. And as a result, it's made me, traveled around, started DJing. My songs have been played all around, Tomorrowland, and like, the podcast that didn't exist. Just so many cool things have happened this year because I've just allowed them to, because I've just taken the blinkers off. So I'd say that
resonates so much with me. I always think that once we're able to get out of our own way, that's when the magic happens.
Yeah,
because it's literally just us. It's always us.
Yeah,
it's nobody else. Can't point a finger. It's always us in our head, constructing whatever it is. Exactly. Be it castles or slums or amazing things or really bad things.
Exactly.
Amazing. So if you had to go back and tell your 18-year-old self something, what would you say? Those
3 points that I had, I didn't know that. Wouldn't have said that when I was 18. Those 3 points.
Would you have been able to perceive them?
Nope.
Which goes back to the journey, right?
Yeah.
You have to
you have to learn things for yourself. You can read all the self-help books and say, you can extract some information, but I feel like you need to learn these things. You need to, you have to get sort of burned in some way. Or maybe not. Some people have much better foresight, but for me anyway, I feel like I needed to go through a lot of these lessons myself.
Yeah.
I probably would have spoken to that 18-year-old and been like, no, I'm me. So that might be you, but I'm personally like, that's probably what would have happened. So I wouldn't have listened.
That makes a lot of sense. And there's so many things that when I think back in time, I knew them. I had heard them. Some people have told them to me, but they just fly over my head. And even this, even coaching, so many people, so many of my friends, like over the years, I've always been that person to advise people and help them get through, rough patches and give them great advice. And, they were like, oh, you should be a life coach. You should be this. You should be that. You should do something. And it was my limiting beliefs that didn't even allow me to properly hear it. I was like, oh, yeah, thank you so much. But, and that's it. Because the soil was not fertile enough for me to even receive that. I keep saying that, but it's just such a graphic image. And I always think about it. It's like there's ice. And that ice are the limiting beliefs. And all the external information that is covering that potential.
It's when you said you were going to do this, I straight away was like 100%. And I would have not, I probably wouldn't have done the podcast if I really didn't believe in it and believe in you. But I genuinely think that this is, you do have a lot to offer. Like, I don't know how much of your sort of journey you're going to share about, but the stuff that you've done, but you're a very impressive person, and your ability to sort of read situations and to sort of fit in anywhere, whether it's like the most luxurious place in the world or some like dodgy bar in the middle of nowhere. Like, I've seen you in all these things, and you can just thrive and flourish, and you've done all different kinds of things. And I think that anyone that's listening, you can, you'll be able to inspire, and you've got a lot of lessons. So I feel like, this is going to do really well. And I'm super happy that you're doing it. And I feel that, again, hopefully this is going to inspire other people to do things that they are kind of thinking I'll do next year, or I'll do when I'm more settled, or because, go back to one of my points, just do it. And that's what you've done. So I'm very proud.
Thank you. I don't have words to express how full my heart is. Thank you so much. And on this very happy note, I want to wrap up with a question. What would you say is your recipe for happiness?
God, when you finish on the last one, I'm like, and that is the perfect way to end the podcast. And then you asked me that question. I think keeping happiness in the day. Don't try and seek the long, massive, happiness is this place, this nirvana where everything is amazing and you've got the house and this and that. To try and find happiness in today. That's really important. So whether that's like, to look back and you don't think, today was a great day. And whether that day was something as simple as, waking up late, cooking yourself your favorite lunch and watching your favorite TV series. If you've really thought that was brilliant, to have that contentment within that day, or whether that's something that's you've just made something, but trying not to make happiness this huge thing that dwarfs everything, and just looking for happiness in the small things. I didn't want to say happiness in the small things because that's a cliche, but just being able to look back on your day and think, today was a good day. That's everything.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you so much, Fredrik.
Thank you.
This has been wonderful. You're a legend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello friends, if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe and share it with someone. I would love to hear your feedback and suggestions as to what guests you would like to see on the show next. See you next week.